The shrill beep of the heart monitor jolted me from my exhausted stupor. I blinked, realizing I'd dozed off in the uncomfortable hospital chair again. Lily, my 4-year-old angel, was curled up asleep in my lap, her golden curls tickling my chin. "Olivia?" Peter's voice was barely a whisper. I looked up to see my husband standing in the doorway, his face ashen. "Mom's awake. The doctor wants to talk to us." I gently shifted Lily onto the chair and followed Peter down the sterile hallway. My legs felt like lead, weighed down by dread and too many sleepless nights. As we approached Estelle's room, I reached for Peter's hand. He flinched, pulling away. Dr. Patel greeted us with a grim expression. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, I'm afraid I have some difficult news. The cancer has spread more aggressively than we anticipated. At this stage, we're looking at palliative care only. I'm so sorry." Peter's shoulders sagged. I instinctively moved to comfort him, but he stepped away, running a hand through his disheveled hair. How long?" he choked out. "It's hard to say with certainty," Dr. Patel replied softly, "but I would estimate no more than 3 to 6 months." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I steadied myself against the wall, my mind racing. 3 to 6 months. How could we possibly prepare for this? Peter's voice cut through my thoughts. "We need to move in with them. Dad can't handle this alone." I froze. "Peter, wait. We can't what, Olivia?" His tone was sharp, accusing. "Abandon my dying mother?" "That's not what I meant," I protested. "But Lily, our jobs, we need to think this through." Peter's eyes flashed with anger. "There's nothing to think about. They're my parents. We're moving in. End of discussion." Before I could respond, a weak voice called from inside the room. "Peter? Is that you, darling?" Peter brushed past me, leaving me alone in the hallway. I took a deep breath, trying to quell the rising panic in my chest. This was all happening too fast. I peered into the room, watching as Peter tenderly held his mother's frail hand. Estelle's eyes met mine, and for a moment I swore I saw a flicker of something. Resentment? Triumph? But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a wan smile. "Olivia, dear," she called softly. "Come here, please." I approached the bed, forcing a smile. "How are you feeling, Estelle?" "Oh, you know," she sighed dramatically. "As well as can be expected, I suppose. Peter tells me you'll be coming to stay with us. That's so kind of you, dear. I know it must be such an inconvenience." "It's no inconvenience," I lied, my cheeks burning. "We want to help however we can." Estelle patted my hand, her bony fingers surprisingly strong. "You're such a good girl. I'm so lucky to have you as a daughter-in-law." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Peter beamed at his mother, completely oblivious to the undercurrent of tension in the room. "I'll go check on Lily," I murmured, desperate for an escape. As I turned to leave, Estelle called out, "Oh, and Olivia? Be a dear and bring me some fresh water. This picture is simply dreadful." I bit back a retort and nodded, my fingers clenching into fists as I left the room. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, fighting back tears of frustration. How had my life come to this? Just yesterday, we were a happy family of 3, with our own home and our own lives. Now, in the span of a few hours, everything had changed. We were about to uproot our entire existence, all because of Estelle's illness and Peter's guilt. As I made my way back to Lily, a chill ran down my spine. Something told me this was only the beginning of a long and painful journey. Little did I know just how right I was, or how much I would come to regret the decision to move in with Peter's parents. The moving van rumbled away, leaving us standing in the driveway of Peter's childhood home. I took a deep breath, trying to quell the anxiety bubbling in my chest. This was our new reality now. "Welcome home." Harold's booming voice startled me. Peter's father emerged from the house, his weathered face creased in a warm smile. "Let me help you with those boxes, Olivia." "Thanks, Harold," I said, grateful for his kindness. As we carried boxes inside, I couldn't help but notice how different he was from Estelle. Where she was all sharp edges and thinly veiled criticism, Harold exuded genuine warmth. "Where's Peter?" Harold asked, setting down a box. I sighed. "He had to run back to our place for some last-minute things. He'll be here later." Harold nodded, his eyes crinkling with concern. "How are you holding up, dear?" I paused, unsure how to answer. "I'm managing." He squeezed my shoulder gently. "I know this isn't easy, but we're glad to have you here, all of you." I felt a lump form in my throat. "Thank you, Harold. That means a lot." Our moment was interrupted by Estelle's voice, thin and reedy, calling from upstairs. "Harold? Is that Olivia? Send her up here, would you?" Harold gave me an apologetic look. "Duty calls," I muttered, forcing a smile. I climbed the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. Estelle was propped up in bed, looking frail but somehow still intimidating. "There you are," she said, her tone impossible to read. "I hope you're settling in all right." "Yes, thank you," I replied, hovering awkwardly in the doorway. Estelle's eyes narrowed. "Well, don't just stand there. Come in. Sit down. We need to talk about how things are going to work around here." I perched on the edge of a chair, my stomach churning. "Of course. What did you have in mind?" "Well," Estelle began, her voice sickly sweet, "I know you're used to running your own household, but things are different here. I have certain standards." For the next hour, Estelle outlined a laundry list of expectations and rules. How to do the laundry, what cleaning products to use, what foods were and weren't allowed in the house. With each passing minute, I felt the walls closing in around me. "And of course," Estelle concluded, "I'll need you to take over my caregiving duties. Harold means well, but he's simply not up to the task." I blinked, stunned. "But I work full-time, and Lily." "Oh, I'm sure you'll manage," Estelle waved her hand dismissively. "After all, isn't that what family does? We sacrifice for each other." Before I could respond, I heard the front door open and Lily's excited voice float up the stairs. "Daddy's home!" "We'll talk more later," Estelle said, effectively dismissing me. I stumbled down the stairs, my mind reeling. Peter was in the living room, Lily clinging to his leg. "Hey," he said, barely looking at me. "Everything okay?" I opened my mouth to tell him about Estelle's impossible demands, but stopped short when I saw the exhaustion in his eyes. "It's fine," I lied. "Just getting settled." Peter nodded absently, already heading upstairs to see his mother. I watched him go, a familiar ache settling in my chest. Later that night, as I tucked Lily into her new bed, she looked up at me with wide, worried eyes. "Mommy, are we going to live here forever?" I smoothed her hair, forcing a smile. "No, sweetie, not forever, just for a little while to help Grandma and Grandpa." "But I miss our house," she whispered, lower lip trembling. "I know, baby," I said, fighting back tears of my own. "I miss it too." As I closed Lily's door, I overheard Peter and Estelle talking in hushed tones down the hall. I crept closer, my heart pounding. "Can't keep this up forever, Mom," Peter was saying. "Olivia's going to find out eventually." "Nonsense," Estelle hissed. "She doesn't need to know anything. Just keep her busy, keep her distracted. I'll handle the rest." I stumbled back, my mind racing. What were they hiding from me? And how much worse was this situation going to get? The acrid smell of burnt toast filled the kitchen as I frantically waved a dish towel at the smoke detector. Lily's eyes were wide with worry, her little hands clasped over her ears. "I'm sorry, sweetie," I said, my voice strained. "Mommy's just a little distracted this morning. What is that ghastly smell?" Estelle's voice cut through the air like a knife. She appeared in the doorway, her nose wrinkled in disgust. "Olivia, dear, I thought you said you could cook." I bit my tongue, forcing a smile. "It's just a little burnt toast, Estelle. I'll make fresh." "Never mind," she interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. "I've lost my appetite. Peter, darling, would you mind running out for some proper breakfast?" Peter, who had been silently observing the scene, nodded. "Sure, Mom. What would you like?" As they discussed Estelle's elaborate breakfast order, I felt my frustration mounting. It had been 3 weeks since we moved in, and every day brought new criticisms, new impossible standards to meet. "Mommy," Lily tugged at my sleeve, "can I have cereal instead?" Before I could answer, Estelle chimed in. "Cereal? That's hardly a nutritious breakfast for a growing child. Really, Olivia, you should know better." I clenched my fists, counting to 10 in my head. "Estelle, I appreciate your concern, but I'm perfectly capable of deciding what's best for my daughter." The room fell silent. Peter's eyes darted between us, a look of panic on his face. Estelle's lips thinned into a tight line. "Well," she said icily, "I can see where Lily gets her stubbornness from. Peter, be a dear and pick up some fresh fruit for your daughter. Clearly, she needs a better example of healthy eating habits." As Peter left, I turned to Lily. "Go get dressed, sweetie. I'll bring your breakfast up in a minute." Once Lily was out of earshot, I faced Estelle. "I know you're trying to help, but I'd appreciate it if you didn't undermine my parenting in front of Lily." Estelle's eyes flashed. "Undermine? I'm merely trying to ensure my granddaughter is properly cared for. Heaven knows she needs it, what with you working those long hours at the hospital." "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "It means, dear, that perhaps if you spent more time at home and less time playing nurse, you'd be a better mother and wife." The words hit me like a physical blow. I opened my mouth to retort, but Harold's voice interrupted us. "That's enough, Estelle," he said firmly, entering the kitchen. Olivia is doing her best, and she's a wonderful mother. Estelle's face softened instantly. Oh, Harold, I was just trying to help. You know how I worry about the children. I watched in disbelief as Harold patted her hands sympathetically. How could he not see through her act? The rest of the day passed in a blur of tension and barely concealed hostility. By evening, I was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. As I was preparing dinner, Peter cornered me in the kitchen. Can we talk? He asked, his voice low. I nodded warily, following him to the back porch. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the yard. Mom's worried about you? He began. She thinks you're not adjusting well. I stared at him incredulously. Not adjusting well? Peter, your mother has done nothing but criticize and belittle me since we got here. How am I supposed to adjust to that? Peter ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. She's dying, Olivia. Can't you just try to get along with her? For me? For you? I repeated, my voice rising. What about me, Peter? What about Lily? When was the last time you stood up for us? He flinched, looking away. You're being dramatic. Mom's just set in her ways. If you just try harder. Try harder. I interrupted, tears of anger and frustration stinging my eyes. I'm doing everything, Peter. Everything. And it's never enough. Not for your mother, and apparently not for you either. I turned to go back inside, but Peter grabbed my arm. Olivia, wait. No, I said, pulling away. I'm done waiting. I'm done trying. If you can't see what's happening here, then maybe we have bigger problems than I thought. As I walked back into the house, I caught sight of Estelle watching from an upstairs window, a satisfied smirk on her face. In that moment, I realized this was far from over. The battle lines had been drawn, and I was on my own. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the exhausted woman looking back at me. Dark circles shadowed my eyes, and my once vibrant smile had faded to a tight, worried line. 2 months in this house had taken their toll. A soft knock on the door startled me. Olivia? Harold's voice called. There's a call for you from the hospital. I opened the door, forcing a smile. Thanks, Harold. I'll take it in the study. As I walked down the hall, I overheard Estelle's voice drifting from her bedroom. Peter, darling, I'm feeling so weak today. Would you mind canceling your plans with Olivia and staying home? My heart sank. Peter and I had planned a rare night out, our first in weeks. I paused, waiting for his response. Of course, Mom, Peter replied without hesitation. I'll let Olivia know. I bit back a bitter laugh. Of course he would. I continued to the study, picking up the phone with trembling hands. Hello, this is Olivia. Olivia, it's Dr. Patel. I'm sorry to bother you at home, but we have an emergency situation at the hospital. We're short-staffed, and there's been a major accident. We need all hands on deck. Can you come in? I closed my eyes, torn between relief at escaping the house and guilt over leaving Lily. Yes, of course. I'll be there as soon as I can. As I hung up, Peter appeared in the doorway. Who was that? The hospital, I replied, already moving to gather my things. There's an emergency. I have to go in. Peter's face darkened. But what about Mom and Lily? You can't just leave. I spun to face him, anger flaring. I can't just leave? Like you were about to do 5 minutes ago when your mother asked? That's different, he protested weakly. How, Peter? How is it different? I demanded, my voice rising. Because it's your mother asking, and not your wife. Because her needs always come first. Olivia, that's not fair. No, what's not fair is how you've completely abandoned our family for your mother's whims, I snapped. I'm going to work because people's lives depend on me. What's your excuse? Before he could respond, Estelle's voice called out, Peter, is everything all right? Peter's shoulders sagged. Coming, Mom, he called back, then turned to me. We'll talk about this later. I watched him go, a mixture of anger and despair churning in my stomach. As I prepared to leave, Lily appeared, clutching her favorite stuffed animal. Mommy, are you going to work? She asked, her lower lip trembling. I knelt down, pulling her into a tight hug. Yes, sweetheart, but I'll be back before you know it. Can you be a big girl and help Grandpa Harold while I'm gone? She nodded bravely, and I felt my heart breaking. This wasn't the life I wanted for her. At the hospital, I threw myself into work, grateful for the distraction. Hours flew by in a blur of emergency procedures and critical care. It wasn't until my shift ended that I checked my phone, finding a barrage of missed calls and texts from Peter. Where are you? Mom's not feeling well. We need you here. Why aren't you answering? The last message made my blood run cold. If you're not home in an hour, don't bother coming back at all. I stared at the screen, a strange calm settling over me. In that moment, I realized I'd reached my breaking point. This wasn't just about Estelle's manipulation or Peter's weakness. This was about my self-respect, my daughter's well-being, and the life I'd worked so hard to build. As I drove home, my mind raced with possibilities. Could I leave? Where would we go? What about Lily? But with each passing mile, one thought became clearer. I couldn't continue like this. Something had to change. I pulled into the driveway, my decision made. It was time to stand up for myself and my daughter, no matter the cost. As I walked towards the house, I steeled myself for the confrontation to come. Little did I know, the worst was yet to be revealed. I stepped into the silent house, my heart pounding. The confrontation I'd been steeling myself for seemed to evaporate in the eerie quiet. Where was everyone? As I climbed the stairs, I heard muffled voices coming from Estelle's room. I paused, my hand on the banister, torn between confronting them and retreating to my room. Then I heard my name. Olivia doesn't suspect a thing, does she? Estelle's voice, surprisingly strong, drifted through the crack in the door. No, Mom, Peter replied, his tone weary. But I can't keep lying to her. It's eating me alive. I inched closer, my breath catching in my throat. Estelle scoffed. Lying? You're protecting her, Peter. She'd never understand the truth. The truth, I whispered to myself, a cold dread settling in my stomach. Mom, please, Peter pleaded. It's been 5 years. We got married. We have Lily. Can't we just let it go? Let it go? Estelle's voice turned sharp. After what that woman did to me? To us? No, Peter. Olivia needs to pay for what happened. I pressed my hand to my mouth, stifling a gasp. What was she talking about? It wasn't her fault, Peter argued weakly. She didn't know about the affair. She didn't force us to get married. The world tilted on its axis. Affair? Forced marriage? My mind reeled, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. Oh, please, Estelle sneered. That little tramp knew exactly what she was doing. Getting pregnant right before your wedding to that nice girl from church. She trapped you, Peter, and now she's going to suffer for it. I stumbled back, my legs nearly giving out beneath me. Pregnant? But we'd only started trying for a baby after we got married. Unless... The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The rushed wedding. Peter's distance in those early months. The way Estelle had always looked at me with thinly veiled contempt. Mom, enough. Peter's voice grew stronger. I won't let you hurt Olivia anymore. This ends now. Oh, it ends all right, Estelle replied, her voice dripping with malice. Either you tell her the truth and watch her world crumble, or I will. And trust me, my version won't be kind. I'd heard enough. I turned and fled down the stairs, my mind a whirlwind of betrayal and shock. I burst out of the house, gulping in the cool night air. Olivia? Harold's voice startled me. He was sitting on the porch swing, a concerned look on his face. What's wrong? I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. How could I even begin to explain? Harold stood, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. I heard them too, he said softly. I'm so sorry, my dear, I had no idea. The kindness in his eyes broke something inside me. Tears spilled down my cheeks as the full weight of the betrayal crashed over me. How could he? I choked out. All these years, everything was a lie? Harold pulled me into a fatherly embrace. Not everything, he murmured. Your love for Lily, that's real. And Peter, he does love you, Olivia. He's just weak. I pulled away, wiping my eyes. Love? Is that what you call this? I gestured towards the house. He's been lying to me our entire marriage, Harold. And Estelle, she's been plotting against me from the start. What are you going to do? Harold asked, his eyes filled with worry. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. In that moment, I knew there was only one path forward. I'm leaving, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Tonight, I'm taking Lily, and we're getting out of here. Harold nodded, a mix of sadness and understanding on his face. I'll help you pack. As we walked back into the house, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Peter appeared, his face pale and drawn. Olivia, he started, his voice pleading. We need to talk. I met his gaze, feeling a strange calm settle over me. No, Peter, I replied, my voice cold. We're done talking. I'm done with the lies, the manipulation, all of it. I'm leaving, and I'm taking our daughter with me. The look of shock and desperation on Peter's face would have once broken my heart. Now it only strengthened my resolve. As I brushed past him to pack our things, I knew that this was just the beginning of a long and painful journey. But for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. We were finally breaking free. My hands shook as I zipped up the last suitcase. Lily's confused eyes followed my every move, her little brow furrowed with worry. Mommy, where are we going? She asked for the third time. I knelt down, cupping her face in my hands. We're going on a little trip, sweetie, just you and me. A soft knock at the door made me jump. Harold stood there, his eyes filled with sadness. "The car's ready," he whispered. "I'll distract Peter while you slip out the back." I nodded, grateful for his help. As I gathered our bags, a commotion erupted downstairs. Peter's voice, angry and desperate, echoed through the house. "You can't leave. We need to talk about this." My heart raced. We were out of time. "Lily, honey, we need to go now," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Remember our game of super quiet spies? We need to play that right now, okay?" She nodded solemnly, clutching her stuffed rabbit to her chest. We crept down the back stairs, the sounds of Peter and Harold arguing covering our escape. Just as we reached the back door, Estelle's voice rang out. "Peter, she's taking Lily." Everything happened in a blur. Peter appeared at the top of the stairs, his face a mask of panic. "Olivia, stop!" I scooped Lily into my arms and ran. The cool night air hit my face as I sprinted across the backyard, my daughter clinging to me tightly. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lily whimpered. "It's okay, baby. We're okay," I panted, reaching the car. As I fumbled with the keys, Peter burst out of the house. "Olivia, please, you can't do this." I spun to face him, anger and hurt boiling over. "I can't do this. You lied to me for years, Peter. Our entire marriage is based on a lie." "It's not like that," he pleaded, inching closer. "I love you. I love our family." "Love?" I spat the word like poison. "Was it love when you cheated on me? When you let your mother torment me for months?" Peter's face crumpled. "I'm sorry, I'll explain everything. Just, please don't take Lily." For a moment, I hesitated. Then I saw Estelle in the doorway, her eyes gleaming with malicious triumph. My resolve hardened. "No more explanations, Peter. No more lies." I opened the car door, securing Lily in her seat. Peter lunged forward, grabbing my arm. "You can't leave. I won't let you." A surge of fear and anger coursed through me. I wrenched my arm free, shoving him back with a strength I didn't know I possessed. "Don't you dare touch me," I hissed. "You lost the right to tell me what to do the moment you betrayed our vows." I slammed the car door and locked it, my hands shaking as I started the engine. Peter pounded on the window, his face a mask of desperation. "Olivia, please. Think about Lily." "I am thinking about Lily," I shouted through the glass. "I'm saving her from growing up in a house full of lies and manipulation." As I backed out of the driveway, I caught a glimpse of Harold in the rearview mirror. He stood on the porch, a lone figure of support in the chaos. I blinked back tears, focusing on the road ahead. "Mommy?" Lily's small voice came from the back seat. "Are we ever going back?" I swallowed hard, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I don't know, baby, but we're going to be okay. I promise." As we drove into the night, leaving behind the only life we'd known, a mix of fear and exhilaration coursed through me. I had no idea what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I would fight with everything I had to give Lily the life she deserved, free from the toxic web of lies and deceit we'd left behind. The road stretched out before us, dark and uncertain. But for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. We were free. Now, I just had to figure out how to rebuild our lives from the ashes of everything I thought I knew. The small apartment felt like a sanctuary after the chaos of the past few days. Lily slept peacefully in the makeshift bed I'd created from couch cushions. Her little face finally relaxed after hours of tears and confusion. I sat at the rickety kitchen table, staring at my phone. Dozens of missed calls and messages from Peter, each more desperate than the last. But it was the single text from Harold that made my heart clench. "We need to talk. Can we meet?" My fingers hovered over the keypad. Could I trust him? After everything that had happened, a soft knock at the door made me jump. I approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. Harold stood there, looking older and more worn than I'd ever seen him. I opened the door, my voice barely a whisper. "How did you find us?" He held up his hands, a gesture of peace. "Peter doesn't know." I followed you that night. I wanted to make sure you were safe." I let him in, torn between gratitude and suspicion. "Why are you here, Harold?" He sank into a chair, his shoulders slumped. "I owe you an apology, Olivia, and an explanation." For the next hour, Harold poured out everything. How he'd suspected Peter's affair years ago, but chose to believe his son's lies. How Estelle had manipulated them all, using her illness as a weapon. And how he'd watched, helpless and ashamed, as Olivia suffered under their roof. "I should have stood up for you," he said, his voice breaking. "I was a coward, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." I felt tears stinging my eyes. "Why now, Harold? Why tell me all this?" He reached into his pocket, pulling out a worn envelope. "Because you deserve the truth, and because I can't stand by and watch my son to his family any longer." With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside were documents, bank statements, emails, and a handwritten confession from Peter. The truth of his affair, the child he'd fathered, and the years of deception laid bare in black and white. He wanted to come clean, Harold explained. But Estelle, she threatened to disinherit him, to ruin your lives if he ever told you. I felt the room spin. So he chose money over honesty? Over our marriage? Harold nodded, his eyes filled with sorrow. He's not the man I raised him to be, and I'm partly to blame for that. Just then my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I know where you are. Either you come home now or I'll make sure you never see Lily again. Estelle. Ice flooded my veins. I showed Harold the message, watching his face pale. She can't do that, I whispered, panic rising in my chest. Can she? Harold's expression hardened. No, she can't, but she'll try. Olivia, listen to me. You need to fight. Not just for yourself, but for Lily. I looked over at my sleeping daughter, so innocent and unaware of the storm raging around her. In that moment, something inside me shifted. The fear and uncertainty crystallized into a fierce protective rage. What do I do? I asked, my voice steady for the first time in days. Harold squeezed my hand. We gather evidence, we expose Estelle's manipulation and Peter's lies, and we make sure Lily stays with you where she belongs. As we began to plan, I felt a strange mix of dread and determination. The road ahead would be hard, filled with legal battles and painful confrontations, but I knew now that I wasn't alone. Mommy? Lily's sleepy voice called from the other room. Are you okay? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the fight to come. I'm okay, baby, I called back, and I promise you we're going to be just fine. As I went to comfort my daughter, I caught sight of my reflection in the window. The woman staring back at me was stronger, fiercer than I'd ever been. Estelle and Peter had no idea what they were up against. This time, I wouldn't back down. This time, I would win. The courtroom fell silent as I took the stand. My hands trembled slightly, but my voice was steady as I swore to tell the truth. Across the room, Peter sat with his lawyer, his face a mask of regret and desperation. Estelle was conspicuously absent, her illness finally catching up with her manipulations. As I recounted the months of emotional abuse, Peter's affair, and the web of lies that had entangled our family, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The truth, painful as it was finally coming to light. And why did you leave that night, Mrs. Thompson? My lawyer asked. I took a deep breath, my eyes finding Lily in the gallery, sitting between my parents and Harold. Because I realized that staying would destroy not just me, but my daughter. I couldn't let her grow up in a home built on lies and manipulation. Peter's lawyer tried to paint me as unstable, as a wife who abandoned her family. But with each question, I stood my ground, armed with the evidence Harold had helped me gather. When it was over, I stepped down from the stand, feeling drained but oddly liberated. As we waited for the judge's decision on custody and divorce terms, Harold approached me in the hallway. Olivia, he said, his eyes brimming with tears, I'm so proud of you. You've shown more strength and courage than I ever could. I hugged him tightly, grateful for his unwavering support. Thank you, Harold, for everything. The judge's decision came swiftly. Full custody of Lily was awarded to me, with Peter granted supervised visitation. The divorce was finalized, and I was awarded a fair settlement, including the house that had once been our prison. As we left the courthouse, Peter approached, looking broken and defeated. Olivia, I'm sorry. For everything. I looked at him, the man I had once loved, now a stranger. I hope you find peace, Peter, and I hope you can be a better father to Lily than you were a husband to me. Months passed, and life settled into a new rhythm. Lily thrived in our new home, her laughter filling the rooms that had once echoed with tension and secrets. I threw myself into my nursing career, finding strength in helping others heal. One sunny afternoon, as Lily and I planted flowers in our small garden, Harold stopped by. He looked older, but there was a peace in his eyes that hadn't been there before. I thought you should know, he said, sitting on the porch steps. Estelle passed away last night. A complex mix of emotions washed over me, relief, sadness, and a final release from the past. How's Peter taking it? I asked, surprised by my own concern. Harold sighed. He's struggling, but I think he's finally starting to see the truth about everything. He's in therapy, trying to become a better man, a better father. I nodded, watching Lily chase a butterfly across the lawn. I hope he succeeds for Lily's sake. As Harold left, I sat in the fading sunlight, reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the fight to reclaim my life, it had all led to this moment of peace. "Mommy, look," Lily called, holding up a dandelion. "I made a wish." I smiled, pulling her into my lap. "What did you wish for, sweetheart?" She grinned, her eyes sparkling. "I wished for us to be happy forever and ever." Tears pricked my eyes as I hugged her tight. "Oh, Lily," I whispered, "I think that wish might just come true." As the sun set on another day, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. For my daughter, for the strength I'd found within myself, and for the future stretching out before us. A future filled with hope, love, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. The road hadn't been easy, and there would undoubtedly be challenges ahead. But I knew now that I could face anything life threw my way. I had weathered the storm, emerged stronger, and created a safe harbor for Lily and myself. This wasn't the end of our story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. And this time, I would be the author of my own happiness.